Welcome, welcome, welcome back, my Be Health Empowered family, to another week of Excuse Me, Doctor. My name is Dr. Melissa Clarke, and please call me Dr. Mel. You know, I'm delighted to be back here with you this week. We are here every week doing what we do on Excuse Me, Doctor, making sure that you have the information that you need to make wise health decisions. And of course, we're streaming on YouTube. We are on Facebook. We're taking questions live. And if you are new to the show, or if you're a friend of the show and you haven't done this yet, please hit subscribe if you're on YouTube, and like if you're on Facebook. I really appreciate if you could do that. And also, please remember to put your questions in the chat, because that's why we're here. We are here for you so that you can get your questions answered. So now, let us get into creating an amazing week, because we have some incredible stories here for you tonight and an incredible show. But before we even get into that, you know what I have to do. I have to introduce my incredible producer and co-host, Mr. Wayne Bruce, bringing you the word from the street, what's on everybody's mind, your voice in the studio.
Howdy, Dr. Mel. Look, I'm excited, man. I'm matching. I had the cold color tone going for the show and everything.
I see you. Trying to make sure your hat and the show coordinate.
Okay, I got you. It's about coordination. Look. So look, I'm excited because people have been asking me to ask you about our subject. But before we do, we have a new guest host this week. You know,
yes, we do.
We have a new guest host. New guest host. I'm excited.
Should I do the drum roll?
Go ahead, do the drum roll. Okay, I can't even hear it, but don't worry about it. We'll add it in. We'll add it in for radio. Okay? We'll add it in for radio. Look, coming to you, she's a portfolio manager for multi-family housing. How's that?
Yeah.
She's our friend. She's a great friend of the show. Let me get it up. Miss Swayze Bryant. Y'all welcome Swayze Bryant to the show. Everybody.
Yay.
Come on, put your hands together. Do I have applause? Hold on. I got applause in here somewhere. Everybody, here we go.
There we go.
Oh, Dr. Mel, what a warm welcome. Oh, you know, I love your show. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to learn about tonight's topic and to have a little fun with Mr. Bruce here.
Come on, man. Come on, we're gonna have some fun.
We are delighted to have you, and we are gonna make it happen tonight, because you mentioned something about tonight's topic, right?
Yeah, my friends have been calling me just when we thought we were out of COVID. Comes something else, the monkeypox. Come on,
right?
Y'all.
And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And it seems like it came out of nowhere. And already we have misinformation. We have IG monkeypox experts, right? And we have stigma attached to it. So we're going to go through all the facts, as we always do on Excuse Me, Doctor. We have found a medical professor and virologist. He teaches about the family of viruses that monkeypox belongs to, and he is going to break it all down for us tonight. So y'all do not want to miss this.
I'm excited.
Me too. You know, I get my information from Dr. Mel. I don't trust anybody else in these streets.
Hey, look. Hey, Swayze, I do the same thing. These streets are not for information. They're just not. You can have fun. You could even run the street if you're real old or grown, but you cannot get your information, your medical information, from the streets. It just does
you gotta
not.
go straight to the doctor. Straight to the doctor.
I hope that everybody is going to share this episode, because I want you to share it with anybody who you know who wants to get the facts on monkeypox, and that should be everybody. So please share it widely. Stop what you're doing and just go ahead and do it right now. Just go ahead and share.
Go share. Go share. Call your friends. Call your people. Tell them we're in the house. We're going to talk. We're going to get the truth about monkeypox. Okay. But before we do, let's kick off the week that was, right? in health and wellness. Let's do the recap.
All right. All right. So let's get it going with our COVID update. Hey, look, monkeypox might be the new thing in town, but we still have to keep our eye on the prize when it comes to COVID. The good news is that we're in a downward trend with hospitalizations and deaths. That's fantastic. And that's because the majority of the United States has some level of immunity based upon either vaccination or having had COVID. Now, all of that has led the CDC to update their COVID guidelines. They have removed social distancing. They have decided you don't need to quarantine if you're exposed. They're not really doing contact tracing unless it's in a hospital or a nursing home. So a lot of changes that we should be aware of.
Dr. Mill, people have been doing that anyway. People haven't been quarantining. They've been on planes. They've been on trains. They've been on buses. They've been in these streets.
Yeah, well, that's true. And they also haven't been wearing masks, which is not something that the CDC has changed. They're still saying that you should wear masks indoors, especially in areas of high spread. And that's just about, high or moderate spread. And that's the majority of the country, over 80% of the country. They still recommend that you should be testing if you have symptoms, and your close contacts should be testing, and that you should be isolating for 5 days if you test positive, and 10 days wearing a tight-fitting mask for that entire time after those first 5 days are up. Wow. So, this isn't over. It's just less deadly right now. And that's something to keep in mind.
What they're not even talking about long COVID. What about long COVID? I don't hear the CDC talking about that anymore.
Well, and I think that's an oversight in the messaging, to be honest with you, because the more times you get COVID, the higher your risk of developing long COVID. And this week, researchers appear to have figured out two of the more disturbing symptoms associated with long COVID, and that's the chest pain and the shortness of breath. They figured out that it appears that many people who have those long COVID symptoms are not getting enough blood to their heart when they're exercising or doing physically, strenuous activity. Mm-hmm. And it seems that COVID is damaging the lining of our blood vessels, so that normally the cells that sit in the lining of your blood vessels, their job is to expand your blood vessel so that more blood can flow through it when you need it, such as when you're exercising to get to your heart. Well, by damaging these cells called endothelial cells, it's making it so that they can't expand. And so what you experience is chest pain and shortness of breath because your heart isn't getting enough blood when you need it. So patients who, have this endothelial cell damage tend to have higher rates of heart failure, heart attacks, all related to this issue.
So the possibility of long COVID is no joke.
I can't even laugh about that.
Yeah.
It's just
no. And we
scary.
Really should be taking it into our risk analysis when we decide to go out and be around crowds and indoors without a mask on.
I even heard something today on the news about long COVID could be possibly causing dementia.
Yes. I mean, we know that it is something that affects the nervous system, and there are a whole range from memory loss to brain fog to weakness and Bell's palsy, all kinds of things.
Wow.
As a result, it appears to be related to long COVID.
Well, I won't get too down, because if I get on my exercise, I can keep depression away. I have this goal, just for no particular reason at all, to do 60 rides on the Peloton before the end of the year.
Okay.
And I'm going to keep it at 60, but not for any particular reason. I'm just saying.
No particular reason.
Reason.
That is a noble goal. And I believe, Swayzine, you're a Peloton rider too, right? And you got it in. You got it in.
300 rides this month.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. She hit 300 rides. That's in the whole year? How long?
Yeah, since January. I started in January.
Wow.
Okay. Well, y'all are setting an incredible example, because what we know now is that small doses of exercise keep depression away. There was a review of 15 studies from around the world that involved over 190,000 people. And they compared people who didn't exercise versus people who got in 75 minutes a week, which sounds like a lot, but it's really just 10 to 20 minutes a day of moderate intensity exercise, like brisk walking or riding your Peloton. Those people had an 18% lower risk for depression. And the more time they spent, so up to 2.5 hours for the week, which is about 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, they had a 25% lower risk for depression. So get it in, y'all. It really can help your mood and your whole outlook on life.
Right.
All right, let's all ride together.
That's
Got to
right.
start a new hashtag.
Right.
Being
Bust
health
depression.
All right, Dr. Mill, you know, I'm all about beauty and keeping our skin together, but tell us what's going on with these skin whitening products.
Yeah. So, you know, one of the wonderful things about Black Lives Matter that people might not realize is that cosmetic giants like Johnson & Johnson, Nivea, L'Oreal, Unilever, they opted to stop selling skin whitening products or rebrand their products or remove the term whitening and fair from their advertising. And these were really important steps, not equating beauty and success and happiness with whiteness. But the thing is, it only happened in the United States and Europe. It didn't happen in Asia, Africa, or the Middle East. So, you know, that's a major problem. I mean, that's the majority of the world.
Now, Dr. Mill, I don't know if you've seen our boy Sammy Sosa. You know, I know some people, you know, they just want to take care of the blemishes. But Sammy Sosa is out here trying to be a whole white person with all that success.
Yeah.
You know?
And besides the obvious psychological issues, and I have seen him, but besides the obvious sort of psychological issues associated with wanting to lighten your entire body and not being comfortable with the skin you're in, promoting beauty ideals that link lighter skin really fuels the demand for these products, because and a lot of these products can be dangerous. Now, the ones from the large corporations I mentioned don't have toxic chemicals, but that's really not what the majority of people are using. They're buying cheaper knockoff products that have things like mercury and hydroquinone and steroids in them, which not only cause acne, but scarring, skin thinning, and can lead to internal organ damage. It's a real problem.
Hold on, Dr. Mel. I remember you just said mercury. I remember when the FDA banned mercury in fish.
Yeah. Well, that's because
I'm old enough to remember that.
Right. Well, that's because, you know, mercury is included in some of these products because it suppresses melanin production. Think about that. But what we see happening is that there was a study that showed that 1 in 2 skin whitening products sold on Amazon have dangerous levels of mercury, which can reduce resistance to bacterial and fungal infections, and over time can damage the kidney, the eyes, and the nervous system. So, you know, I just say, look, Black is beautiful.
Yes.
We should go with that and just be happy.
Just blemishes and all. Just
blemishes and all. Just roll with it.
It's all beauty. Like,
Right.
I mean, Sammy Sosa out here looking like Grandpa from the Munsters.
Yeah. And he's not, I mean, like, we're picking on him, but he's not the only one.
I know, I gotta stop.
Well, you know, it's just really unfortunate. He's such an accomplished athlete.
Exactly.
And it's still not good enough for him, you know?
Right.
For whatever reason. I mean,
for whatever reason.
You know,
yep.
I'm just gonna say this though. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm gonna live a long life, because I found out that drinking coffee can make you live longer.
Well, that is what one recent study suggests. And it was specifically the number of drinks, coffee drinks was 1.5 to 3.5 cups a day, did appear to be associated with higher rates of longevity.
Oh, I can keep drinking my inflation coffee, my caramel macchiatos, $7 a cup.
Well, not really, because those kind of sugar-laden drinks like lattes and macchiatos, or people that put artificial sweeteners in their coffee, didn't really have that same longevity benefit. Unfortunately, what they did see was people who sweetened their coffee with just 1 teaspoon of sugar had a 30% lower death rate than non-coffee drinkers, and those who didn't put any sugar in had a 16 to 29% lower death rate compared to non-coffee drinkers.
So you got to drink your coffee like Heavy D. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream.
That's
the cup of coffee I want on my team.
Right. That's really what's going to help you out. And then it also turns out that the kind of bean actually makes a difference. The 2 most common are Arabica and Robusta. Robusta has the highest amount of the anti-aging and anti-inflammatory chemicals, which are called phenols. So those are the things to stick with. Filtration is better than French press or boiling. So get your Robusta beans, use your coffee filters, and don't add a whole lot of sugar.
That sounds fun.
Like Heavy D.
Like, this past couple years have been just one hit after another, man. I mean, now it's just black coffee. And even now, they're trying to bring back polio. Like, this is what's going on. This is crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all heard, but there was this case of polio that caused paralysis that happened just this past July in a young adult from Rockland County, New York, where the vaccination against polio in some zip codes is as low as 37%. So we see why it probably happened there. As you remember, polio is a vaccinated against in childhood in a series of 4 injections. And so apparently in some of these zip codes in Rockland County, that's not happening for whatever reason. Now, wastewater surveillance, we've talked about how they use that with COVID, where they've been doing it with other diseases too, including polio. And they detected several other samples of polio virus in Rockland County, Orange County, which is nearby in New York, and even in New York City, 25 days before this young adult who got paralyzed. So that says that other people have been infected, and for every 1 case of paralytic polio observed, there are likely hundreds of other people infected who don't get symptoms. So this is what I have to say. We need to stop with the nonsense of not getting vaccinated. Get vaccinated against polio if you haven't already. If you're keeping your children from getting vaccinated, please get them vaccinated. Polio is entirely preventable, and its reappearance should really be a call to action for all of us to make sure that we're vaccinated.
I guess that's the final word on that, Dr. Mel.
Yeah.
You do know what time it is, right? You do.
No, what time is it?
It's time.
The weekly Debug.
All right, Dr. Mel. I was in Austin this weekend. I ran across my girl, Taisha Twitter Fingers. And let me just tell you what Taisha had to say. Taisha said she got the first J&J vaccine, but that she's not messing with it anymore because she read she needs to detox from the spike protein in that vaccine, Dr. Mel.
I don't know about that, but I'm looking at your phone, and Taisha misspelled spike with spine. So Taisha, excuse me, Dr. Mel, is that how you spell spike? Or
I think she probably did mean the spike protein, because that's the one that's on the surface of the COVID virus, and that's what allows the entire virus to enter your cell and cause disease. So think of the spike protein as like a probe that sits on the outside of the virus. And since it's on the outside, it's an easy target for our immune system to recognize, form antibodies to, and then those antibodies eliminate the whole virus from our system. So that's why the spike protein was part of the COVID vaccine, the part of the COVID virus that was used in the COVID-19 vaccines because it's easily recognized. Okay, so the vaccines cause the body to produce a small amount of the spike protein, and then an immune response happens. We make antibodies. Once that immune response kicks in, it really clears that protein out of our body, and only your antibodies stick around and the memory cells that produce the antibodies. Those are the only things that stick around. The spike protein gets eliminated. And it's barely detectable in the bloodstream of vaccinated people for just a few days. After that, it's gone. So by itself, the spike protein does not cause damage to cells at that low level that it's detected in the body. It just can't do it. Now, on the other hand, unvaccinated people who get infected with the coronavirus have way more not only spike protein, but way more of the entire virus running around their bodies. So the virus in its entirety, with its little spike proteins on the top, can wreak havoc on the body. And the risk of developing serious complications, like we've talked about with long COVID, or even in the short term, blood clots, lung damage, etc., are far higher with COVID-19 infection than after getting a COVID vaccine. I mean, there's no comparison. So, in fact, the vaccination using that spike protein helps to reduce the risk of all of this. And then last thing, there is absolutely no evidence that detox diets or any kind of detox procedure can alter the level of the spike protein in the body, or that you even need it. So your body is your detox machine. So that's it.
Clearing that up, Dr. Bell. Taisha is Tyrone's cousin.
Oh,
cousin.
Right. Well, Tyrone got vaccinated, so I think he completed his series. So hopefully Taisha will fall in line with that.
Well, we'll see. We'll pray for Taisha.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Swayzine, for guiding us through the recap and the debunk. We're going to see you back shortly because we are about to jump into the monkeypox section of our show. And we have an incredible guest who is going to walk us through this latest public health concern, monkeypox. And he is Dr. Donald Alcendor. He is a virologist, an associate professor at Meharry Medical College, and as well an associate professor of pathology, microbiology, and immunology at Vanderbilt University School of Medicine. He's also a consultant and voting member of the FDA Antiviral Drug Advisory Committee. Welcome, Dr. Alcendor. Thank you so much for joining us on Excuse Me, Doctor. Absolutely. So, the question on everybody's mind, what is monkeypox and where did it come from?
So I think we have to start from the beginning. So monkeypox, as we think, is a misnomer because the monkey is not the original reservoir for this virus. It's thought to be a rodent. And so it can infect monkeys, but again, a misnomer as terms of monkeypox. This is a virus infection that's a zoonotic infection, meaning that it can infect animals, and from animals, humans can become infected. So this is a member of the orthopox family of viruses that includes the smallpox virus, the cowpox virus, vaccinia, which is another virus, and the vaccinia ankara strain is the actual virus that is used as a vaccine virus against smallpox or other orthopox family of viruses.
Okay. So why is it that we're now just all of a sudden hearing about monkeypox, which sounds like it should be called rodent pox? But why are we just now hearing about monkeypox, and why is it now worldwide? Like, what happened?
So the incidence of monkeypox in the United States has simply not been around. So when we think about it, there's been sporadic cases of monkeypox in the United States back in 2021. But again, this was travel-associated monkeypox for people that travel to Africa and came back to the United States. Limited cases, we had a few individuals or one individual. But in 2003, something important happened. And that is, you had a shipment of about 9 different species of animals from Ghana to Texas. And it turns out some of these animals were infected with monkeypox, and they were housed in the vicinity of prairie dogs that were destined to be sold as pets through a pet store. So about 47 different people became infected with monkeypox. Again, a small infection. And again, there was work with the CDC and the local health authorities to limit the spread of monkeypox at that time, and we didn't see any large outbreak develop. However, monkeypox has been increasing since the last 25 years, more than the last 40 years in incidence around the world. And so because we do not vaccinate for smallpox anymore, what we have seen is an increase in vulnerability to monkeypox. Because smallpox is now eradicated, monkeypox now becomes clinically relevant in terms of an infection in humans, where we are now considered a vulnerable population. Because if you're under 50, you haven't been vaccinated for smallpox.
Right. Okay. So therefore, there's a larger number of people who are vulnerable because they stop vaccinating against smallpox. So there are more people who are vulnerable to monkeypox, which is kind of like its kissing cousin, basically.
That is correct. It turns out the orthopox family of viruses, they share antigens. And if you develop an intervention against one, that intervention is very well likely to work against another. So a small
hold on, you used a word that people might not know, antigen. So we just finished talking about the spike protein on the COVID virus. That is an antigen. It's a protein or on the surface or something that stimulates an immune response because the body recognizes it as foreign. So you're saying that the smallpox and the monkeypox virus share some proteins that our body makes antibodies to.
That is correct. And because of that sharing, that genetic similarity, then if you're protected against a vaccine that will protect you against smallpox, it will protect you against monkeypox as well and other pox family viruses.
Got it. So has there been a difference? Like, has monkeypox mutated or changed in any way? Are there variants of monkeypox running around?
There are mutations that they have seen in the current monkeypox outbreak. However, it has not been discovered that these mutations will result in changes in this virus's ability to cause disease, for it to be more contagious, to be able to evade the immune system, or for that matter, infect different hosts other than humans.
Okay. Now, I didn't hear you mention cause death. Can you die from monkeypox?
You can, and for certain people that have underlying conditions, particularly immunosuppressed conditions, these individuals are at greater risk for more severe disease associated with monkeypox infection. It turns out monkeypox, under certain circumstances, can have as high as a 10% fatality rate. And it's going to be in those individuals that more than likely have an immune compromised condition. And again, in the form of encephalitis that can oftentimes leads to cellulitis and pneumonia, monkeypox can be life-threatening in certain populations.
Okay, and so to break that down, encephalitis means an infection of the brain, right? And cellulitis, a bad infection of the skin. So, what are the typical symptoms of monkeypox, and how long do they last for?
So the symptoms are going to start out with just feeling bad. So fatigue, malaise, and then there's going to be headache and chills. There's one characteristic feature of monkeypox that most people get, and that is a rash. According to the CDC, 98% of individuals presented to the CDC as having monkeypox that was confirmed had a rash. Now, that rash can change over time. This rash can also have fluid inside the lesions, and that fluid is highly infectious.
Okay. And how long are you contagious with monkeypox? Like, how long do you have to isolate if you get it?
So we're looking at 2 to 4 weeks. And again, you can gauge this by looking at how these lesions resolve themselves. When you see the lesions dry up and then they become covered with new skin, which happens in about 2 to 4 weeks, then that person now is considered not contagious in terms of transmitting the infection to a contact.
Got it. So how do you pass monkeypox from one person to another?
So we have to think about this as indirect ways and direct ways. So in terms of direct means of transmission of the virus to a contact, this is by intimate, sustained contact. It can be transmitted by the respiratory secretions. It can be transmitted by touching the vessels from the rash, that is the pustules that can be in the rash. So intimate contact in the form of hugging, kissing, prolonged face-to-face, intimate contact that might include sexual behaviors and so forth. And of course, there's also contact that is indirect, meaning that fluid from these lesions that get on towels, linen, blanket, and clothing are highly infectious. So when you think about the most serious opportunity to become infected, it's going to be direct skin-to-skin interaction with materials from the lesions of a person that has an acute stage infection of monkeypox.
So then or this is a question I'm sure somebody might have in the audience, do I need to be concerned when I, let's say, go to a movie theater and sit in a seat that somebody with monkeypox might have sat in?
Well,
in that indirect method of contact.
It shouldn't be a concern. However, if there's lesions on a person's buttocks and those lesions bleed through the seat, and you're sitting there with legs that are uncovered, and you have abrasions on your legs, the possibility is there, but you can see most people will wear pants, most people will wear undergarments, and of course, clothing is very important in protecting you from direct interaction with lesions that might appear on a person that is infected with monkeypox.
Got it. So now we've seen that monkeypox so far has been in the community of men who have sex with men. Does that mean it's a sexually transmitted disease?
So when you think about a sexually transmitted disease, it would be transmitted by semen or vaginal fluid. To date, it is unknown the significance of semen transmission and vaginal fluid transmission of the monkeypox. Again, sexual and intimate activity is clearly able to transmit this infection. So again, during that time, there is intimate contact. And of course, where you see the lesions, more than likely will be the site at which the virus enters the body. Right. And again, most individuals have anogenital lesions, but the lesions can occur in different places, and the number of lesions can vary widely.
And you also mentioned breaks in the skin. So the friction from sex can also cause breaks in the skin and make you more vulnerable.
Absolutely.
So given all of that, should the general public be concerned about?
I think you have to take this with an understanding of looking at the numbers. So in Tennessee, we have 137 cases of monkeypox that's been confirmed. We have about 6.8 million people living in the state of Tennessee. However, at the same time, you have to look at this infection is sequestered in the queer population. And so when you start adding the numbers up, you can clearly see that your infectious risk for monkeypox as a general population, as we see it now, would be low. However, we have to be vigilant. And again, if you are a part of the queer community, you interact with people that are having multiple sex partners, then you come closer and closer to high risk behavior for monkeypox transmission. You have to be concerned. And so if you are interacting, having sex with, or for that matter, in living with a person that has monkeypox, you're going to be at high risk. And of course, if you are having multiple sex partners with other members of the at-risk community, then again, your risk level becomes high. So it depends upon your risk level based on the behaviors you're with, you're participating in, and the people that you're interacting with.
That makes sense. Okay. So are there trends that we're seeing in terms of spread or hospitalizations that we should be aware of?
And so monkeypox in general, for people that get it, usually this will be symptomatic. However, within about 2 to 4 weeks, they should get better without hospitalizations. However, in some people that have underlying clinical conditions, I'll give you an example, a person that maybe has had a organ transplant that requires drugs to suppress their immune response may be more vulnerable for monkeypox. A child that is very young who has an immune system that is underdeveloped may be at greater risk for severe complications of monkeypox. A person that is older, living in an elder care facility that might have many types of underlying conditions may be at greater risk for more severe disease. But what we know is that nobody in the United States have died of monkeypox. And so what we hope is that is a trend that continues.
So, there have been some challenges, I think, with getting vaccinations out, even to the community of men who are having sex with men. Will the entire population eventually need vaccination, do you think?
This is a wait and see approach. And the idea is that we're looking at the significance of spillover into the general population. That will be a concern. We're starting to see a number of children being infected with monkeypox. Children are a very good vector for transmission because they will easily get around. Their habits when it comes to hygiene is always going to be questionable, and they would be good at spreading this infection. But what we're seeing now, if you take into account places like Texas, California, Florida, New York City, and so forth, you see high levels of monkeypox there. The numbers are rising. Now, once we see a significant spillover into the general population, and again, you have to expect that. And so what will happen is that we will see if the introduction of the vaccine will curtail that spread. And at the same time, you will have people that are going to be getting well. So those people that are infected are going to get well, and they are not likely to spread. The education and awareness that comes with a broad approach to telling people what they should do about monkeypox, if that will help. Gay men are now starting to restrict the number of sex partners they have and to participate in behaviors that will limit monkeypox spread. And so when you take all of those things into account, we still have an opportunity to curtail this infection that we see here in the United States, but it's going to be a matter of time. And if we see significant spillover into the general population, then we could see considerable spread that may require significant tracing of people and vaccinating portions of the general public. But at this moment, this is not the stance of the CDC at this moment.
Okay. So, related to vaccinations and who's getting vaccinated, the trend it appears that we're seeing, though, is that it's men of color, Black and Hispanic men, who are disproportionately getting monkeypox. Are those individuals also proportionally getting vaccinated?
Well, again, vaccine access has been difficult for people living, particularly in vulnerable populations. And again, people that are living in pharmacy deserts, people that lack health insurance are going to have a difficult time in being able to access the monkeypox vaccine. The vaccine that we have now is clearly not enough for the demand. And that is, we won't see significant vaccine probably until next year. But again, we're hoping that the administration will take the lead in trying to basically create opportunities to increase production of this vaccine. And again, those African-American and Hispanic men that are part of vulnerable populations will have less access for these vaccines. The dose sharing that we're seeing to try and expand the use of this vaccine by giving 5 individuals to be vaccinated instead of 1, I think that will help stretch this vaccine. But again, in those populations, that are vulnerable with poor social determinants of health, they could see a considerable problem in terms of accessing this monkeypox vaccine.
So is there any practical advice if I'm a gay Black man who has more than one sex partner and I know, that I potentially am at risk? Should I be contacting my local health department, my doctor? What should I do?
I think if you're there and you have a person, you're living with a person that you know is positive for monkeypox, infected, and have been confirmed, then you ought to be concerned. And if you've been having sex with that individual, then you should be monitored by a health professional. You should also consider being tested for monkeypox. And so if you're part of a high-risk group, you have to be concerned. However, self-monitoring, if you haven't been involved with the person that have monkeypox, is very important. Having multiple sex partners, you have to consider reducing the number of sex partners that you have. And again, being able to access the vaccine, you may have to go out of state to access this vaccine. But again, if you're at high risk and you meet eligibility requirements, then it's a matter of just finding a place to get the vaccine. And again, I would tell all individuals that need the vaccine to look to your local health departments where this vaccine has been supplied to, and then try and find a way to register for this vaccine so that you can get it. Now, again, some people are concerned about the amount of vaccine they might get. Even if you're getting the intradermal injection of a 1/5 dose, that is likely to be protective based upon studies that have been done in comparison with the Genuos vaccine that's available now. And again, the Genuos vaccine is a vaccine that has been tested in immune vulnerable populations and is safer than the ACAM 2000 vaccine that is more readily available.
So the Geneos vaccine is the one that you should be asking for if you can get
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I have more questions, but I got to make sure that we get our audience questions in here. So I'm going to bring back Wayne and Swayzine. And what's it looking like out there?
Wow.
Questions out here.
Yeah, it is on fire in the comments. And great questions. Go ahead, Sway. You want to start?
All right, so we'll take the first question from Marie Claire Brown. And her question is there any known incidence of monkeypox in a person vaccinated against smallpox?
So that's a question we talked about at the beginning of the show. And that is, we stopped vaccinating for smallpox back in the late 70s, early 80s. And the idea is that if you're sitting there and you're under 50, more than likely you were not vaccinated with smallpox. Turns out in 1960, we had only 5 vaccines available to us in the United States. Again, smallpox, diphtheria, polio, pertussins, and whooping cough, okay? And so the idea is that when you look at those number of vaccines that we had, over time that changed. But again, not vaccinating for smallpox made us vulnerable to monkeypox.
But
and again, if you're younger,
I think what Marie Claire Brown's question was, if I understand it correctly, is she wants to know if you're over 50 and you got vaccinated from smallpox.
Okay.
Are there any cases of monkeypox in that population?
Yeah. So we don't know the answer to that. That's a study that I would like to see, meaning that the smallpox vaccine that you were given as an older person now is a vaccine that was to protect you for 5 years. But what we know about the immune response is that the immune response is amazing in terms of memory cells that can hang around. And of course, if you're infected with monkeypox, do you see a diminution of symptoms? Do you see people that are asymptomatic that got a smallpox vaccination back in the day? That hasn't been done, but I think that study will be done shortly. And it has to be done, because what it will say is that, and it would be done in vulnerable populations, that is, gay men that are older and have gotten the smallpox vaccine. Do you see a reduced incidence of monkeypox even in those individuals that have been in contact with people that are infected?
Right. People over 50 want to know. All right.
Absolutely.
Next question.
So we have a few people ask this, but I'm gonna pop up Yvonne's, and Yvonne is a incredible follower and viewer. She has a few questions, and they're all good questions.
Yeah.
And she says, "What about swimming pools? Do you think it'll be trans? I guess she's talking about transmission."
So the idea is that in swimming pools you have to have chlorine. Chlorine is something that viruses don't like, especially envelope viruses. And chlorine is bad. It's basically bleach. And what we do to kill viruses in the laboratory is use bleach, 10% bleach. And so viruses don't like chlorine that you would find in swimming pool water. And so that would be a problem. In terms of getting infected from swimming pool, that's a problem. It won't happen more than likely. Now, before you go swimming, if you're putting on a swimsuit from a person that had a case of monkeypox, again, that's a problem.
I don't think that.
If you're putting on a swimsuit for somebody else, that is a problem. You need to buy your own swimsuit and wash your own swimsuit.
That's right. Before washing, I mean, that's a problem.
So this is a question I have. Dr. Mel, this is a question I have. So does that mean when we check into an Airbnb or something, we have to bring our own sheets to make sure that,
well,
I mean, I don't know.
All I'm saying is this. First of all, a person that has monkeypox lesion that sleeps on a bed, exposing those lesions to the sheets, those scabs or fluid from those lesions that dry up on the sheets are highly infectious. And I'd leave it at that. And the idea is that if you get on those sheets, and some people may not like to wear clothing when they sleep, I think this would be problematic. But again, this virus is looking for any type of abrasion or a mucosal surface to enter into to establish an infection.
And just to be clear, that means a break in the skin.
Right. Yes. You're going to have to break it down for you
so
know.
You're more vulnerable if you have breaks in the skin.
Like the mucosal, you got to break that down.
Yeah,
so absolutely.
The lining of your mouth, your nose,
nose, eyes, anal area, and so forth, and of course, genital regions.
Right. Okay. The pink stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Swayzine.
All right. Well, this is a good question to segue into. So, how long does the monkeypox virus last on surfaces?
So again, the arthropox family of viruses are very good at being able to survive and be replication competent after drying. That's why the scabs are so infectious. And of course, if you go back in time to when soldiers, United States soldiers, took blankets and other soldiers that died of smallpox and gave it to Indians, these Indians became infected with smallpox and many of them died. This was one of the first efforts at biological warfare.
Trail of Tears.
So would you say then that it stays infectious for hours, days?
It would be days. It would be days. It would be days. Again, drying. If you take smallpox and you dried it down, it is still infectious. Wow. You dried it down to a scab, a crust. You made a powder, because if you go back in the days when they did a process called variolation, what they did is they took smallpox scabs and they crushed them up into a powder. And what they did is they sniffed them through the nose, or they took materials from a lesion, took the hair on a horse's tail, dipped it in a smallpox lesion, and then went across your forearm back and forth until it went into the arm. And that was variolation, or a kind of vaccination at the time.
Right. That's the Onesimus story.
That's Onesimus.
Right. That's right.
All right.
So I'm seeing this question in the chat, and I also just got a text from my mother, because she's the queen of Lysol. So if we are spraying down, I see Gina Prince hoarding Lysol. If we're spraying down these surfaces and hotels and things with a whole can of Lysol, Sharon Miller, are we protecting ourselves?
Lysol will do the trick on just about most viruses. It will do the trick. Absolutely. Lysol will do the trick.
We are the ethnic group that is the queen. We are the queens and kings of Lysol. But anyway.
Yeah. Again, the arthropox family of viruses are viruses that have a lipid envelope made of a fatty material, right? And it turns out that these reagents that you buy that are disinfectants, they destroy that lipid cover. And again, when you do that, these viruses are no longer infectious.
All right. Well, that's good news.
And Tracy Walls says, back to taking sheets and towels when traveling, doing along with Lysol. Everybody agrees. So we have another question, and Yvonne is a great question. Do you see, will it spread? We will see it spread. Men lie. Oh, she's talking about, do you think it'll start spreading like AIDS because men lie to their female partners?
Yeah, so this is a problem in the sense where there are certain men that are bisexual, meaning that they have, some of them have a wife with children, and they have another partner on the side, usually a gay man or another bisexual person. So this is an avenue by which the virus can spread into the pediatric population and to women. And so the idea of it spreading like AIDS, what we're hoping for is that doesn't happen. What we know is that in terms of sexual transmission, the information is still out in terms of this virus being transmitted by semen and vaginal fluids. Viral DNA has been found in the semen of people that are infected. However, the testes is an immune privileged site, and it turns out that the virus can be there, but it's not replicating or dividing in a sense. And so you're not making more virus within that reservoir of semen. And so it's not likely to be enough there to transmit the infection like a regular sexual transmitted infection like HIV. We don't think that this virus will get to that point. But again, if we get enough spread into the general population, into children, let's say this virus gets into incarcerated populations that are oftentimes unable to be apart from one another. And we know that in jails and in prisons, things happen. This virus could take off in that setting. And again, we got football season coming. This is a virus that can hang around in locker rooms and be transmitted quite readily. And so all I'm saying is that it's about opportunity here. It's about this virus getting to vectors that are more easy to transmit. And again, like children, you're talking about parents and you're talking about other people. We don't know what this virus will look like in babies or in people with organ transplants or older people or people that are under 8 years old that have immune systems that are not developed. And so what we're hoping is that if this virus then crosses over into other vulnerable populations, we hope that it would be limited. And of course, if it does not, then we have a chance to control this infection going forward. If it stays sequestered in the queer community and the numbers start to plateau and the vaccines start to be widely distributed within that community, and people at the same time, after about 2 to 4 weeks, will get better. And there's clear recognition from the gay community that they understand that this is a problem, and they're being engaged, and they are limiting their activities to try and control this infection. And I think when you think of all of these things, we will find out in the next 2 or 3 months. By Christmas time, or for that matter, by Thanksgiving, we will be able to look back at this time and see where the numbers are. Because when you think about it, other than Texas, Georgia, New York City, California, and places like that, we don't see monkeypox numbers above 400 in other states. We still have states that have 2 and 3 and 5 cases of monkeypox. And if we can maintain that to where this is sequestered, then what we know is that targeting those states that I just talked about is the best way of controlling this. And of course, you can be as aggressive as what they're doing in Harris County, Houston, Texas. And that is, their health officials are saying, we are going to go on a campaign of vaccinating all our vulnerable population. That is, all those individuals that are gay men that are likely to have HIV or at risk for HIV. We are on a campaign to vaccinate all of them.
And I think that's wonderful, but it sounds like there are a lot of ifs.
Right.
Yes.
Between now and Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And this is really sort of the pregnant moment where a robust public health response is needed that really goes out and engages. We need to learn what we should have learned from COVID is how to engage communities that are hard to reach communities and get the right messages and help them make the right choices and give them the tools. In the case of COVID, it was masks and then later vaccines. Now it's condoms, abstinence, limiting your sexual partners, and getting vaccinated. So
absolutely.
There's
and I want to say that for those vulnerable communities that have poor access to vaccines, this is where the mobile vaccination programs that, like we have at Meharry, will be able to get on the move and meet people where they are to deliver those vaccines. And again, those vaccines need to be free and available.
Go Meharry. All right.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more. You want to read that Yvonne question, Swayzine, about pregnant?
All right. Tell us about what could happen with pregnant women and their fetus.
Yeah, what we know is that there is transplacental spread of this virus. So a mother can transmit this infection to a child. What is the concern here is that pregnant women and breastfeeding women should be of great concern and should be considered for treatment. And of course, when I talk about treatment, I'm talking about antivirals. And antivirals being able to limit the spread. In this case, we're talking about tecovirimat, or what's called TPOXX. This is an intervention that was developed to treat orthopox viruses. And of course, women, and we know that all pregnant women are not completely healthy. Some of them can have immune suppressive conditions. And of course, they should be considered for interventions with antivirals if there's any sign of them being infected with monkeypox, because there's evidence that shows it can be transplacentally transmitted to their unborn child.
Okay, so remember that TPOXX is not a wrapper. It is actually a medication that can be used to treat monkeypox, because we had not talked about treatment. So thank you, Dr. Alcendor, for getting that in there. And unfortunately, we have to end on that note. Thank you so much for all your wonderful knowledge and sharing with us tonight. I learned a lot. I think our audience probably learned a lot. You were incredible in all the knowledge you dropped. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And of course, I have to thank you, the audience, for giving us all those incredible questions. Thank you, Swayzine, fabulous co-host. Thank you, Wayne, incredible producer and co-host. And as always, before I go, I just want to remind you all about that study. Is still going on. You can still get in to the Howard University study that's looking at COVID resilience in the time of COVID. You don't have to have you don't have to have had COVID to participate in the study. It just means, how have you been coping during this pandemic? So the participation is voluntary, but if you fill out just 2 surveys, you can receive compensation of up to $100. So if you're interested, reach out to Dana Harvey Research at gmail.com. That's Dana, D-A-N-A, Harvey, H-A-R-V-E-Y, research at gmail.com. You'll be speaking with Dana Harvey, who is the research assistant for this Howard University study. Well, thank you once again for joining us. We will see you back here next week. And until we see you, remember to be wise, to be well, and to be health empowered. Thanks for joining.
So I guess I should thank the Robinsons. They invited me. They still don't know. I hooked up with Dave 3 days ago. He'll start coughing tomorrow. And I bet in 10 days he'll be on a ventilator. Now, his wife, she's not vaccinated because she thinks it'll prevent her from being pregnant. But what they don't know is that I can decrease sperm count. Sorry, Dave. Good luck with that.